First thing is approval minutes of April 7th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 7th.
Is there a second?
I will second it, but I have a correction.
Okay.
On page 2, where we rescinded the original motion to approve the minutes of March 17th. It says Selectman Kearns made the motion to rescind her motion, but it was actually Richard who made the original motion. To see, if you go, Richard made the motion to approve the minutes of March 17th. But then over here, I made the motion to rescind my motion. No, he rescinded his motion.
So how do you want to read?
Selectman Bramley made the motion to rescind his motion to approve the minutes of March 17th.
I think you made the motion to
Right.
receive the motion.
It was
You
your,
can
it
rescind
was
it.
your motion. I can't. Can I make a motion
Yes.
to rescind your motion?
Yeah.
I think so.
As long as you voted for it. We all voted to approve it. Anybody can vote that we can vote to change our mind as long as you voted for change.
Is that how?
Yeah, but it says, I made the motion to rescind my motion to
Right. No,
approve
if
the
you didn't
minutes
make
of
the
March
motion, that's-
17th. But I didn't make that motion.
Correct.
Richard made it.
So I think the only thing to be changed would be the her to the word
To
the.
Selectman's, or
Right.
the, or Selectman
To
Bramley's
the.
motion.
Selectman Kearns made the motion to rescind the motion to approve the
Okay,
minutes.
yeah,
of
that would
March
make sense
17th.
too. Okay. To rescind
Right, we can
the
change.
motion, okay. Okay,
Okay.
that makes sense.
All right. So any other changes,
Yes.
corrections?
I know, I missed it.
Lovely table. Okay, so all in favor of approving the minutes, April 7th? Aye. With
Aye.
correction. This agenda, I had one, Bradford Road.
I missed who seconded that then. Richard made the motion, so you're seconding it with the correction.
With the
right?
correction.
Yeah.
Bradford Road.
Bradford Road, post office. Any other additions? Is there a second to add Bradford Road, post office?
Second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Communications, the board had one from Joanne Mordershek, president of the, secretary of the Calhoun Cemetery, reminding us of the promises to do, help them out with some trees and some fill. We have that on the schedule. We're supposed to get down to look at that today, but we had another event to take care of, so it is on our calendar. We are, and I would expect, we'll get the fill down there next week. We have to trim some trees in order to get the dump truck back. We'll have to go over that with Jim.
So you're aware of the 2 trees that she was talking about?
Yeah.
That needs to be done.
And there's also just some trimming needs to happen. So it's on the list. Let's see. Also, just communications, there was a large fire in town last night on Cream Hill, and just thanks to the fire department for doing their good work, and also to our neighbors. I think 8 other departments came to assist, including the Goshen Fire Department. So it's very reassuring when we need help that it's out there. So also a segue into thanks Bob Valentine, first selectman of Goshen, for coming to our meeting. So I think these towns, really work together when they have to, and we'll be talking about another idea later on. But especially in the middle of the night, it's great to have people come out. Any other communications?
Where are we at on the sidewalks in West Cornwall?
We're waiting to hear back from the state person about our extension, whether we're going to grant an extension or not.
So the extension only goes through the end of the year, so how
Right.
long do we wait before we contact them again and say, hey?
I have talked to them twice, and part of it is the budget thing. They've got to get a better read on how the state's finances are doing.
And then, the slow children signs on Brook Road
Yeah,
that we have near the
we're,
garage.
well, we're not putting up slow children signs or whatever, but we're gonna do the ones we've had up on River Road, the please slow down, which
Please
seems
slow
to,
down.
the fluorescent green seems to be good, and I think we've ordered up 6 more of those,
Okay.
so those are on order in the works.
Okay, good.
Any other communications? Any public comments? Welcome to everyone here. Welcome Bob Valentine, First Selectman of Goshen, who contacted me last month about a proposal from the town of Goshen to share a van with the town of Cornwall. So here he is.
All right. You want me to come up there?
Yeah, or you can sit from
You
whatever
sit?
you're
Okay.
comfortable
That's fine.
doing.
All right. I have to fix my hair. Is my hair all right?
You used to be filmed at your meetings about?
Not generally.
Not doing it.
All right, so thanks for having me tonight, and Gordon and I have been talking back and forth, and after speaking to our agent for the elderly, and she also serves as director for Goshen Hospice Community Care, Debbie DePietro, and getting an email from Rick Lynn from Northwest Hills COG about the bus program, or van, actually more particularly, handicap accessible van program that the state offers. It's actually a federal grant that's passed through the state of Connecticut. It's called the 5310 grant program. Realized that there was a need in Goshen, but maybe not a need for an entire van, and so Debbie was actually having some conversation with your people here in Cornwall, and suggested that we maybe get together and work cooperatively to apply for and utilize a van for our seniors and for handicapped individuals. So did you pass out previously, Gordon, those paperwork that I put out?
Yeah, I've been forwarding various things.
Yeah, so,
To the board, including one from the Northwest Transit District.
but I should mention, we met with them as well.
Right.
Gordon and I met with them.
And gave us some background on the grant. I did talk to, the Transit District. I have talked to people in Colebrook, the first selectman there. Colebrook and Norfolk share a van, and that seems to be sort of our model, similar population
Absolutely.
towns, similar demographics, and both selectmen there are very enthusiastic about the program, and it does take a while to get it going, to build a ridership, but especially in this increasingly elderly population and increasingly isolated population, it seemed like a really good program. It seems that there is this grant that I believe it pays up to 80% of the van, and then
Right.
the towns have to pick up 20%.
Right, so the 5310 grant program, as Gordon says, pays 80% of the purchase price of a van, and then we would have to pick up the 20. Not that there's any guarantees, but I did reach out to Foundation for Community Health to see if maybe there was a possibility of getting the differential there vis-a-vis grant.
What
Or
was their response?
their response was, there are no guarantees, but if you would like to apply, we would be happy to look at it. They do fund some grants for gear, bus, so there's precedent for it. Also, now I'll get the name wrong. It used to be the Torrington Area Foundation for Giving in Torrington, but now it's the Area Foundation for Giving. Does anybody, what do they call it now?
Oh, yeah, Northwest Community Foundation.
Okay.
Northwest Community.
And so Guy Revisi there,
Yeah,
I
Guy
did,
Revisi.
yep. So I
Thank you,
spoke to
Guy.
Guy, and once again, he said, you know, we'd encourage you to apply, and no guarantees, but we would work with you. So my thought is if we jointly applied for a van, I would think if we were successful in that, we would try to put an application together with one of the, either that or Taconic Foundation. See if we can get the differential via grant.
So if I can ask now, I know we've been over some of this before.
Right.
We have the initial expense of the van,
Sure.
which we're hoping to get 80 to
Yeah.
100% of it covered.
Approximately 52,000, something like that.
Yep.
So 20%.
Yeah, I think Tom McKeon from Colebrook,
Divided by 2. What?
but Tom said he spent 54,000, I think, on the last man.
Well, okay, so anyway,
But anyway,
there's the
but
price
yeah,
of the van,
absolutely.
which we hope to have, recover a lot of.
Yep.
That's one of the
And that's,
expenses.
I think also that's a grant, from what I understand, unlike most grants, that's a direct grant, it's not a reimbursement grant, so that 80% goes to the dealership, so we don't have to front the money.
Even better.
Yep.
But my question really is, what happens after that? I mean, sort of, I have a multiple
Yeah, absolutely.
part set of questions. So there's the expenses afterwards, which are the reoccurring ones or the ongoing ones. You know,
The operating costs.
the operating costs, fuel, insurance, and maybe an operator.
Yep.
There's sort of that, there's that question. I think part of it was answered, who do we currently get some ridership rides?
Transit
Yeah.
district.
Right.
Here in Northwest Transit.
Northwest Transit is,
Yep.
I think, more so than Gear, I
No,
believe.
here is more in Cornwall than Northwest Transit
Yep.
is.
Yeah,
So is
we
this,
don't
but this would be administered,
You don't want,
use gear.
no, but Gear is,
You do. Yeah.
we do, we use
Yeah.
Gear more than Northwest Transit, right?
but this van would then end up being administered, if that's the correct word, through Northwest Transit? Are their drivers
Sure.
maybe?
So let's go into
Sort of-
some of
sort
that
of the
detail,
set of
because
questions
getting one is the simple part,
Right.
although it's not, but in the scheme of
The
things,
easier
in planning, it's the easier part, sure. So, once you receive one, you have to figure out how you're gonna go about utilizing it. How are you gonna get drivers? Who's gonna pay for the insurance? Where's it gonna stay? Who's gonna do the maintenance on it? Who's gonna schedule things? So that was part of what Gordon and I discussed with
Right. and
the
honestly,
transit
those are
district.
the
Yep.
bigger-
And so I think, and I don't know if you have a different opinion from when we had that meeting, but it seems to me that we work with the transit district for two important components: scheduling and drivers. Because they already have the process of hiring drivers, they have payroll, and we would reimburse them through other grants. And we can talk about the other grants that are available. Operating grants, which are under the 5310 program as well, but there are operating grants that are currently available, both communities. So the transit district can facilitate taking calls for service and also scheduling the drivers. So that's a big piece. Right, because you're small, we're small, we have part-time staff, I'm sure you have part-time staff down here, you don't have full-time staff to be doing all of these things. So that would be the first thing, so we would enter into an agreement, if we choose to do this, we'd enter into an agreement with the transit district. They have a set fee schedule, they do this for Colebrook, and I can't remember if it was Colebrook or Norfolk that, I think Sue said they hire their own drivers, and Tom McKeon from Colebrook, I think he just uses the transit district drivers. And Sue Dyer from Norfolk does hire some drivers for some trips. But so they've offered that, the transit district has offered that, they do it for other municipalities. So that's one component. We would have to,
Wouldn't they do it with their own buses that they currently have now?
problem is their buses are limited in number, and so what we're finding, and I think what your social services has found, when it comes to doctor's appointments and things like that, they cannot be flexible enough. What they do is they end up with a series of buses that have a series of schedules. And so they go here this day, there the next day. So we could still utilize that, as you do now and as you do with gear. But the need that I'm seeing more than anything, and as Gordon says, we have an aging demographic here, is for doctor's appointments and things like that when people can't get there. Goshen Hospice and Community Care does an awful lot of that. Now, with volunteer drivers, the problem is if you have handicapped people who are less mobile, who need handicap accessibility, they have very few options. You can call a transit district, but it has to work within their schedule. And that becomes very difficult with the numbers that they serve and the number of buses that they have. Which I think is one of the things that happened with Colebrook and Norfolk, is they found that it was
So this particular
advantageous.
bus that we're discussing would then be,
Van.
or van bus?
It's a 12-person
But it would
van
be-
bus, however you want to call
It
it.
would be specific for our two communities.
Just for our two communities.
And therefore, wouldn't be required to cover Litchfield or
Yeah, all
Sharon
those
or
towns.
just whatever.
Is it 11 towns, Gordon? Do you remember?
It's a lot.
It's a lot of towns.
Yeah.
We would have a high priority, we'd have the only priority, Cornwall and
Well,
Goshen.
we would be the priority.
We would be the priority, right.
Right.
So Jill, our social service director, is estimating 3 to 10 people. Is it per week?
Yeah, what did she say?
3 to 10 rides per week.
All right, so let's say it's 5, let's say
Yep.
average. How many is Goshen estimating they would need per week?
According to Debbie, 2013 they did up 275 rides. 2014 the ridership was down, serving 37 to 45 families. Let me see, this is just handwritten, so I'm just going to look and see what.
Well, we have something here from Tammy.
Right. And that's using the existing bus, we're using 213
That's our current with the transit.
with the transit.
Yep, we could transfer that.
And we did, you got a thing from Jill today, or yesterday or sometime,
Oh, last week.
yeah, with, saying she, you know, was estimating 3 to 10 rides
Right,
per week.
that's why. I'm
Now, right
saying-
now, we're doing 214, we're averaging 4 per week.
Ours is on par with what you're doing pretty much,
Yeah,
because it varies. You can't say
Right.
it's gonna be X number. Yeah.
but even with that amount of ridership right now, as Monday when I went in and talked to Jill, she said she had 2 clients that were trying to schedule doctor's appointments that couldn't get rides at this point. Because the problem too is, as everybody knows, doctor's appointments are getting to be harder and harder to get, so then you have to put in this other thing of fitting into transportation.
Right,
And
I'm
it's
just
a
trying to
piece.
justify $25,000 and 5 rides a week.
Oh, well, don't get there yet,
Okay,
because you're not spending $25,000 just yet.
maybe.
So, did you get the sheet that I had sent along on grants for operation? There are, well, I'll just run through them here. There's a municipal grant that has a potential for each of our municipalities as follows. Goshen, $25,527. This is annually. These are dollars that are earmarked already. They're federal dollars that are not being utilized currently, totally.
That we would get every year?
That we have the potential.
that
We
that
don't, we
van
don't,
is in
yeah,
service?
yeah. We don't get it
Potential
unless
for it.
we put in for the number of hours used. So you get it based on the number of hours used. And I'll give you the breakdown on that. Do you have that right there?
Yeah,
don't you?
we have this
Well, let me
information
tell
for
you,
different-
Cornwall has 24,829. So between the two towns, there's $50,000 there.
There's some,
Oh, so I do have that, so that's yearly just operational costs,
And that's
not
only-
cost of the van.
Correct. And that's just one pot, if you will, of grant operation dollars that we can utilize.
Potential.
It's only
Yeah.
potential, and that's why I put potential, because it's not
And
guaranteed.
it's from who?
This comes through the transit district. And it comes from federal dollars, transportation dollars for seniors and disabled.
So the transit district already runs a bus through here and in Goshen, but they're saying that even though they already have transportation through these towns, but they are still willing to give a grant.
Well, it's not their money to give. The dollars that are available they would help us to be able to get those dollars, so they would work us to get through the dollars.
Okay,
It's
so they
not-
don't have it yet, but they
No.
would help us get
They
it
can't
from
even
the
get
state
these
or the
dollars
feds?
unless they're, doing work just in Goshen.
From
or
the
just in
state or from
Cornwall.
the feds?
It's federal dollars.
It's federal,
Yeah.
okay.
We have these run sheets from like Kent, Morris, Farmington. Is that what you're thinking about, Bob, where it says there's different ways you can charge for different services
Sure.
against for your operation
Yeah,
costs?
So what I had was, for those dollars, all right, so if you talk about those municipal grant dollars, those dollars, are available based on $33.50 per hour, 20 of which would be for the driver. Because if we use transit district driver, we're not paying unemployment, workers' comp, anything like that. We're getting a net number from them, right? So they're facilitating that, taking all costs, $20 for a driver, and then $13.53 can be used for maintenance, fuel, and et cetera of the vehicle. Right, so you have to fuel it up, maintain it.
So this transit driver, so this van is gonna be parked either in Goshen or in Cornwall.
Yeah.
And this transit driver is gonna drive from wherever they live to either Goshen or Cornwall to pick up that van
Pick it up.
and drive. Okay.
Yep. Now, so there's those grant dollars. Those are grant dollars that are available for usage between the hours, typically for the transit district, between the hours of 9 and 3 o'clock, Monday through Friday. Then there are other dollars that are available that are
What's the name of that? It's like Happy
the
Times or something.
New Freedom Grant.
New Freedom, there you go.
Yeah.
Makes
New
you feel
Freedom
better,
Have you
yeah.
applied to them yet?
But we don't have to apply to it. Those are dollars that are available, and in fact, the dollars that are underutilized.
And they're
Those are,
underutilized by who? From what I heard was they were very, it was very hard to get that money because it's.
That's not the
there's
impression
so
that I got
much-
from Carol Dean.
Really?
I got the impression that those dollars specifically are for after hours, so that would be after 3,
right. 'Cause the thought was
weekdays
that-
and weekends.
Right, and so you could.
You couldn't use them between 3 and
Right.
9.
3 o'clock is a very unusual time to end being funding. You go to a doctor's appointment and it's in the afternoon.
It's inconvenient.
It's very, yeah,
But now you have New Freedom.
well, not, that's good, it is new.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, there's no question, that's inconvenient.
And let's,
This is part of the problem with using the transit district currently, because they only run from 9 to 3. And they do not run on weekends.
right, so, and also this van could be used for, the top priority of course would be medical things. But it could also be used
Initially.
for shopping.
Yep.
It could, you know, because I guess Colebrook has a shopping group that goes somewhere every Wednesday. And then you could also use it even if people wanted to go to church or some other
Yep.
social event. It could go to, it could be used for things besides just emergency medical doctors things. And if we want to go to the flower show, we could go to the flower
You can go
show.
to the flower show.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing-
Park and Rec do all that stuff.
Yeah,
too.
I think the important thing with that is it's for most of the, if you talk to Sue Dyer and Tom McKeon, and even Carol, when they start different programs here and there, once they become available, you find more people use it. And so seniors will use it to socialize. So they might use it to, you know, go shopping or do, as Gordon says, other things. And they can be trips. And you can utilize the grant dollars to offset that. So I don't, quite frankly, I think if were we to do that, what we would see is over time, this would build where people would be utilizing it more. And that's the difficult proposition, is putting that together today and saying, okay, if we're gonna look, you know, 2 years out in the future, what's it gonna look like?
Just the fact that Cornwall is saying, or our social service individual is saying that Cornwall would use, estimated usage is 5 times a week.
Yeah.
That's 1 a day. To some degree, one person in the van for a ride is a half a day's use right off the bat. By the time they get in the van and go where they're going, do
Come
what
back.
they're doing, get back in the van and go back home, we're talking 2-3 hours
Right.
easily.
And then if you have to bundle people together with 2 or 3 doctor's appointments, you've got to go
Right,
from
so-
Sharon
So
to
my,
Lakeville back
so
to
my
Sharon.
point though is that 2 or 3 people, 3, if you average 2 rides a day or 3 rides a day, I'd say the van's 60% being used right
Sure.
there.
And
And maybe a lot more convenient. I would think that we would be using, I think the use of the van would happen. I don't think that
I
that's.
don't have a
question.
problem with that either, because we also have that same problem. We had an odd situation recently where a woman who was wheelchair bound, her husband was in a nursing home and became very ill and ended up in a hospital, and it was on a weekend. He ended up dying, and she couldn't get there because there was no transportation. She didn't have family around. She even tried Campion. Campion has a handicap van, and they were busy and they couldn't do anything. So that's an extreme case,
So
but
if moving this, thinking along different ways, if we make some assumption that, you know, if you build it, they will come, if you get a van, it'll be used. And to some degree, I think that's true, that the van will find use. You have the expense and possible grant of purchasing it. You have the expense and operation of it, operating costs and possible grants to offset that. And I think the question, the ultimate question is, if we're able to purchase the van through grants and spend very little or nothing to do that, great. In the first year, we come up with grants to operate it, or maybe we don't. Is the town, our town or your town or both, you know, our decision would be, are we willing to expend dollars?
yeah, what's it worth it to you?
Right,
What's it
exactly.
worth?
That's ultimately what it comes down
So
to.
it always does.
Yes, it always does. You
Yeah.
are correct.
Yeah.
And so that's a decision that we'd have to make. I'm not, you know, it seems like a need is there in the community, and
Well, I can tell you, my Board of Selectmen has had discussion, quite a bit of discussion on that, and it has voted that Cornwall willing, we would apply.
right.
Yeah.
I think also, I mean, in this town, there used to be a volunteer organization called FISH, where people would drive people around, and that, because of the expense and time, and also some concern about liability, that service is no longer there. So we used to have a volunteer thing that sort of worked like this. It was, people didn't have wheelchair capacity, but it still was a great service. But that's not there anymore. At the same time, we're seeing an increased need for it. So it's, you know, and it is, but also talking to Tom McKeon in Colebrook, the town would then, all right, so we get the van, then the town would have to front some money to operate it, and then we get reimbursed. So we would, you know, we're looking at a time frame of legal ads now,
Yeah.
you know, probably it would take 6 months, or it will take us some time to hear whether you can get the grant,
Yep.
right? And then there's a 6 month or delivery
Yeah.
time, so you're talking next spring before this ever happens, probably, and then at that point, the town would then have to fund something, set up a fund to operate it.
Yeah, I think
If we get it.
reasonably you'd have to, when I read the grant application paperwork and the explanations on the grant application paperwork, it will bring us most likely close to our next budget cycle. If not into our next budget cycle, close to our next budget cycle. So if you think about your 15-16 budget, which I'm sure you're working on as we are right now.
Yeah, we're
Yep.
pretty done.
Yep, so it'll bring you into your 16-17 budget cycle to do that. The other thing that we would have to have some conversation about is how we work things out. Although there are grant dollars available, right, so you have the potential to get grant dollars, municipalities have to show that they have 50% match, either in kind or in dollars. And what Carol tells us and what Tom is doing, you know, when you talk to Tom and he says they pretty much pay for it through grants, is because they have in-kind services. So for us, for instance, we would use some organizational things, either from Recreation, Rec Director, or Debbie DePietro, our agent for the elderly, as in-kind hourly services. There would be storage of the bus.
Right, there's
So
something about just for
in-kind
parking in
and
your
that.
garage.
Just parking in your garage, you can get some in-kind, there's a calculation, and I'm sure that, both Tom and Sue could help us with that, and I have other towns that can help us with that. So you do have to put some money up. So, as you say, it comes down to, is it worth, for this service for the seniors, is it worth ponying up some money? At this point, we don't know exactly what it is, but I think if we look at it from two perspectives. One is, applying doesn't mean you're gonna get it. All right, so most of the time, these 5310 grants go to replace existing vans. So we would be a new customer, so to speak. I have had some contact with a person in Condot who deals with this grant, and was very encouraged because we were two towns speaking about doing it. And she has been extremely helpful and sent me paperwork, and actually some other towns who do cooperative efforts such as this. So the first thing is can we get it? My suggestion would be to apply for it. If we don't get it, then everything else becomes moot, right? Apply for it, and then if we get it, then we can go to these other foundations and say, we have 80%. We would like to be able to raise the other 20%. Take some time to do that. That's gonna, I really think that's gonna end up, we're gonna be in another budget cycle here before we get there.
And if we get the grant,
Then we can start to really put some numbers together.
and it's like, and then it's also like, is it a 6-month delivery time from
Yeah,
the
it's
order
about a
of the
6 month
grant?
delivery, yeah.
So you have time to.
Yeah. That's why I say you're
Figure
into
out
another
the deal.
budget cycle.
Was there any kind of a study, or did you do a needs assessment?
We did for our seniors, the Goshen Hospice and Community Care got a grant to do a study on needs assessments for seniors. And
In Goshen.
Janet Hooper did that, and Terry Foster. And the result was, for us in Goshen, the top need for our seniors was transportation. And then after that, it became senior housing and some other things below that, but the top need was transportation identified.
So when that top need was determined, did you then have a conversation with Northwest Transit and Gear about
Oh, yeah, right, at the same
expanding
time.
their services?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what was their
Well,
response?
They understand they can only expand within their capabilities. So they have limited capabilities, is it 17? They have quite a few buses, but they either have 11 buses to go to 17 communities, or they have
Right.
I can't remember,
They who?
transit district.
Okay.
So we can talk, and we did at that time, talked about doing some special trips, because they had the ability to maybe plan a special trip. So, and we've done that a couple times, and it's been very successful. But the ability to be able to hit this doctor's appointment thing is something that they have limited ability. If you call up Carol or Tammy, and they'll tell you, have your people call, you're part of it. We actually designate, I don't know how much you do, but we designate a little under $2,000 a year to the transit district for that service, right? So the problem becomes availability, particularly with the doctor's appointments. Not so difficult if you decide that you're gonna go to the flower show, whenever it is, one day, and you can plan far enough ahead of time. A little simpler. If we had a van, we could do that, and it would be really simple. But I think the big need is this transportation for seniors, doctor's appointments, and at times shopping too. Because where do most of your residents, if they go?
We shop everywhere. We shop in Cornwall, we shop in Sharon, we shop in Kent, we shop in North Canaan, in Torrington,
Yeah.
Litchfield. I mean,
Yeah.
we're in the middle everywhere.
You're in the middle of everywhere.
Salisbury.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
most of our
literally,
residents, as you know,
Yeah.
they
We
go
go
to
over
Torrington, maybe Litchfield.
Right. A
So,
lot of people go to North Canaan, stop and
Yeah.
shop there, or Torrington, Davis, IGA.
Yeah.
Or-
So, Gordon talked about timing. If we're going to do this, there is a deadline of this Friday to run a legal ad that says that we're going to apply. Now, I've taken the liberty to have a legal ad drafted. Maya did that for me today. Application is May 8th, I believe, is the deadline for application. But the legal ad indicating that we would be applying for a grant, and essentially what the legal ad does is it says to any other transportation entity that has a license in this area, I'm actually copying what Barbara Henry did last year in Roxbury, the legal ad, and it basically says, towns are applying for a 5310 grant program. Grant in order to purchase a van. If you have any interest or concerns, let us know. If you do and you would like a public hearing, we'll do a public hearing.
Oh, so this truly is a legal ad going in the paper.
In the newspaper.
To notice.
Notice all the transportation companies.
Everybody else.
And
Yes.
what other transportation companies are there?
As I looked at it, Rick Lynn gave me Barbara's application from last year, Barbara Henry from Roxbury. And she hit, they're closer to New Milford. So she hit, there was some bus service in New Milford, there were some taxi services in New Milford. And these things are territorial. I don't know if you know anything about the transportation business, but somebody can jump up and say, hey, I don't like that. So, it's not been the case, as far as I know. Of course, Colebrook and Norfolk have been doing it for a long time. Barbara didn't have any problem last time. Yeah. So, for all I know, quite frankly, somebody could jump up and say, wait a minute, that's my business. I
So
don't
the
want you
major
doing that.
transportation, well, the two that serve Cornwall are Gear.
Gear.
Transit.
Potentially.
district,
Northwest.
And privately would be like that taxi man, you see him driving around.
Taxi man.
But taxi man doesn't have.
We're here.
Taxi man.
Taxi
can't.
man can't take wheelchairs.
Right, he doesn't.
Right, he's just in the car.
So right off the bat, that.
Nor can Jim and Tony Corner run a livery service in Goshen.
Mhm. Handicap accessible.
They don't have any handicap accessible.
But the
Right,
Northwest-
So they really couldn't complain then because they
Well,
can't.
anybody can complain.
But they
No.
can't service the
They
need
couldn't
of
service the
handicap.
need.
Okay.
The Northwest
because this
Transit
is-
District, though, is on board with this.
Oh, they're on board, so they're not gonna come in and say,
And
hey,
and Tammy or Carol said they just couldn't come tonight. They can come when we get together to hammer out the nitty gritty as
Yep.
far as where's it gonna be, how do we prorate the costs, these kind of things.
how we work that in kind into all of that.
Right.
Yeah,
How we budget for all this.
how we put the budget together. The way the paperwork's put together, you have to put, as part of the grant application, a budget together, obviously, and you have to put together an anticipated schedule. From what I can see for others, when they've done that, they do their best guess effort. And then after a year, you have a track record and you're able to do it. You're not needing, from what I've seen, you're not needing to have large numbers of ridership in order to be eligible. The idea of these vans is for rural areas such as ours, where there's an understanding that there's definitely a need. Families are more dispersed, our population is aging, and it becomes more and more difficult for people to get from point A to point B. So, and that's part of the reason for this grant. It's out there, as I understand it.
And Ken, if somebody had a medical appointment, say in Danbury or New Milford, they could go outside our little Torrington Sharon area. Is that right? There's no
Yeah, we
constraint?
would control that.
I mean,
The only
We
thing that you
wouldn't go
couldn't
to-
do, because I remember one of the buses, even Transit, was going up to Great Barrington,
right.
and then maybe Kelly Transit or somebody complained because they weren't licensed to go out of state.
Right, you have to stay in the state. Can't go to New York.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Unless you get the license.
unless you get
That was the
licensed.
same problem with the New Freedom grant that Northeast Community Center had in Millerton. They couldn't take the bus from Millerton to Sharon Hospital because he went across state lines
Yep.
until Connecticut finally signed off on the paperwork and allowed that to happen.
Some of this stuff is very territorial. And,
And that was the thing.
and there are very few
It took-
businesses
it
that are
took
like
a year
that.
and a
This
half
is
to
one.
make that happen.
so, well, that's essentially it. I mean, those are the timelines. I don't think, I mean, I'm happy to sit down and try to put together a budget. Timing just hasn't been such when your board meets and, you're working with budgets and we're just finishing up. I present budgets tomorrow, our last budgets. So, timing is what it is. What I would suggest, if you're inclined, let's apply. let's do the legal ad, do the application. I've spoken to Chip Rohrbach about doing an intermunicipal agreement. We would have to have that before we actually did the application. It would be a simple agreement saying that we, the towns of Cornwall and Goshen, agree to work cooperatively to apply for this grant and to utilize the bus. And, let the attorneys make that more complicated, but that's how I see it.
Okay.
We would have to nail down things, and we'd have to have some conversation. Where's it gonna be housed? Who's gonna maintain it? You asked about insurance, $600 a year.
Right. And we'll have to work out, the,
Details.
Is it just a two-town thing? I mean, have you
Yeah.
talked to, combining it with Sharon or Kent or Morris? I don't know, like, does that just make it so much more
I haven't,
complicated?
where's
I think
Litchfield
so.
go?
what?
Where's, Litchfield has a bus.
They do. I think Ken has.
Do
his
they
own
help
bus.
with Morris?
No, Kent has a transit bus. They don't have their own bus.
I know.
They have a Northwest Transit bus that goes one day a week, I think,
Yeah.
Thursdays.
Frankly, Heidi, when we look at our numbers and we talk about how long does it take to get to a doctor's appointment, you talk about number of trips. For this, trip is there, and then trip is back, so that's 2 trips. For you to go to Sharon,
30 minutes.
30 minutes,
20 minutes, 30
Oh,
minutes.
to go there and back?
No, just that's one way.
just one way.
Yeah, 15,
Right.
15 minutes.
Here to Torrington.
So for us to go to Torrington, it's 15, 20 minutes, depending on where you go.
Mhm.
And I don't know, how many of you have gotten to the doctor's appointment and they brought you right in?
Right.
So you're thinking to add
Yeah.
more towns would just
I think right
complicate
now
the
would
matter,
complicate the
it would
matter.
be too
I,
time.
yeah, and quite frankly, I think if Goshen applied on its own or Cornwall applied on their own, they would probably
No,
not get it.
certainly wouldn't.
Right.
Wouldn't happen.
Yeah. All right, so I'll make a motion that we proceed to do a joint application with the town of Goshen to acquire a van for use of our citizens. Primarily elderly, primarily for medical appointments.
And handicap.
and
Yeah,
handicap.
to acquire the
Accessible.
grant for that van.
Right,
It's
handicap.
80% of that van.
Well, I would say to attempt to obtain grants to offset the expenses of it in any way possible. I wouldn't want to limit it to 80%.
Right,
Well, that's what's,
I think
that's
we
what the
should
grant
attempt.
is, right, 80%?
right.
The
But we could follow it
5310
up.
is, yeah.
Right, and then, our, yeah.
So
That's
you
a
apply
start
for the
point.
5310 to buy the van, where does the new Freedom Grant come in?
Comes in for the transportation. Comes in for
Operation.
the
For the
operational cost.
operation part of it?
Yep.
That goes beyond your
Yep.
9 to 3. So if you wanted to go to,
So weekends and after 3.
Right.
So
Yeah.
back to the
Our new
original,
Freedom.
one of the original things I said. We buy the van, we come up with 80%, possibly more, possibly 100% to purchase this vehicle. Okay, that's the first step, and possibly the easy step, probably the easy step.
Mhm.
Then you have the operating of it, which includes insurance, a driver, maintenance, scheduling, blah, 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 whatever. A bunch of stuff we've all talked about and beat it to the ground. But the key thing, sort of what kind of guesstimation are we gonna come up with for a budget, which is really some of the work you're already doing, and attempt to get some grants for that for our 16-17 budget. And if we get some or don't get some, sort of how much is the town, or how much are our towns looking at potentially for operating? And, and that's kind of the, those are, I'm just sort of restating some of the same things that we've already talked about, but that sort of sums it up. And the first step is your motion, which I'll second, to put it into put this into motion.
And if I could just add one thing, is that the more we use it, the more it's paid for. You're gonna have fixed costs like insurance and maintenance and things like that. And the more you use it, the easier it is to pay for that.
I think it'll get used.
right,
Is there any, so the folks that use it, is there a fee to them?
You know, you can charge a fee. Everyone that I've spoken to said the fee is so small, don't bother trying to put that into your budget. Well, I mean, you would have to anyway, but it's de minimis
Oh, okay.
overall. So I wouldn't use that as a contributing factor to pay for it.
Okay, any more discussion? Thank you, Bob, for taking the leadership on this and
Oh,
thinking
you're
of us. I
welcome.
think it'll be exciting. I said
Yeah.
it's great to have these towns working together, and just over Cornwall's combining with Sharon for Little League, so, and, you know, all these towns are finding out new ways to work together, and I think really that's what's required. And I said, this is, you know, and the more I talk to the people about it, the more, you know, you don't hear about people not being able to get to medical appointments, but that's certainly a, you know, a very important thing. And,
I
so-
think your citizens are a lot
Yeah.
like ours. They're very independent,
Right.
and they're very proud.
And they won't complain, but they need to get to the
Absolutely.
doctor. All right. Good, all right, so any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. And I will bring this up to the Board of Finance tomorrow night, so they'll know, you know, what's ahead as far as the scheduling and what's going on. And we'll get publicity about this, so we'll work out the finances as it comes along.
All right, so maybe what we can do going forward, let me get that legal ad done, fired
Right.
down to you,
Okay,
so you can review it. I'm gonna essentially just copy Roxbury's.
okay,
If that worked for them, it should work
Yep.
for us. We'll just say, you know, Goshen, Cornwall. I would, like to get, will not even like to, but we'll need to get some good numbers, estimates, working with your social service people and ours. So can we get together sometime in the very near future to have a discussion on how we facilitate that?
right, well, yeah, this is, I don't know, do
So-
you need more than this?
We may need a little bit more. I'm gonna,
Right.
now that we're gonna move forward, I'm gonna go, I've already read the application once, I'm gonna go and read the application again and the instructions again. And I'm gonna start to
Right.
fill in the pieces,
All right.
knowing that we need to get that together and submitted to Condot and Rick Lynn, by the 8th.
Right,
So, we also are going to need as part of that, and I'll get Chip on it tomorrow, a intermunicipal agreement. And you and I'll just have to have the discussion about, you know, who's gonna store, who's gonna maintain, how we're gonna do that and stuff.
mhm,
Because we'll put that into the agreement, or we can leave it so that it's flexible.
Right.
I'm fine, as I mentioned to you before. We'll work that out.
okay,
Yeah, because
So-
do you get like really detailed about that before we even know if we've got the van?
Well, you'll need it in order to apply, because
They'll need
the
to
state
know
is
that you
gonna
have
say,
an
okay,
agreement. Do
you
you
have
have
two
an
towns,
agreement?
do you have an agreement?
Yeah.
right,
Does the legal notice, there'll be one legal notice, or does each town have to submit its own?
As I understand it, if we apply, jointly, there will be one legal notice, and it'll be run in the Waterbury Republican.
good,
So, all right, so I'll touch base for you tomorrow,
good,
and I'll get that
Yeah.
together. The legal notice is already done, I'll fire it on
Right.
to you tomorrow.
okay, sounds good.
Perfect.
All right, thank you very much, Bob.
Thanks,
Thank you.
appreciate it, it'll be good.
Okay, all right.
I finished my selectmen's meeting about 45 minutes ago, so I'm gonna go home and eat dinner.
That's right. Sounds good. Okay, all right. So let's see, next we have Tom Giuliano, Cornwall resident who is offered to become the Cornwall's Torrey Area Health District Representative and has written us a 2-page letter saying his qualifications. Came in and talked a little bit last week and said, yeah, Tom, come on up or say hi. That he actually had gone to the health district in Torrington and talked to the director there about what the job is and being a chef, your background and how that might fit into the organization. So is there anything you want to add or?
Sure. Firstly, thank you for having me. My name is Tom Giuliano. I've been a Cornwall resident for about 2 years now, and I have a young family. I'm really trying to really settle in the town of Cornwall. my wife, she's on the board for the Child Center, and I'd really like to do my part as well in the town of Cornwall. But yeah, I feel like I'd be a great candidate for the representative position. Like Gordon stated, I have been a professional chef for the past 6 years. After speaking to the director, Robert Lugo, he mentioned that chefs have been on the board prior, and they actually can bring in a lot of input. And as well as that, I'm also a small business owner in Cornwall. We have a very small business, Cornwall Soap Company, and we handcraft our own soaps, and that is in the same realm as the Torrington Area Health District, and yeah.
Any questions for Tom?
Well, certainly the pay of this position will greatly enhance your,
And also, Robert Lugo mentioned it would be nice to have a younger candidate. I am 29 years old, so I'm not even 30 yet.
An endangered species in
Yeah.
northwestern Connecticut.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and you know, I think being on the board can actually help really give some input from young families, but
Right.
also attract young families to the area as well, or try to help to attract young
So
families.
I think a lot of people are concerned with the price of compliance with new increased health regulations, sanitary regulations has made it very expensive to repair and install septic systems,
Yeah.
as well as some business regulations. I know our local representatives have been very accommodating when we have to, we have issues, but it is an issue.
Yeah.
That it is great to have somebody that is younger and has business involvement.
Yeah, exactly that point. You know, I'd really like to keep my business in Cornwall and try to attract new businesses as well, and to give to do as much as I can to help in that field. Same thing. My wife is like I said, on the board for the Child Center, and I know that they have some issues with the water testing and how expensive it can be for nonprofits and things like that.
I would just think that your knowledge in the food, your overall knowledge in the kitchen would be valuable to Torrington Area Health. That would be a valuable asset.
Thank you.
Yeah, you seem to have diverse experience in it. Your business is fully in Cornwall now? I mean,
Fully.
folks have noticed that you were in Goshen for a while, and
Yeah.
then like that sign came down.
Yeah. We were renting the address 664 Sharon Turnpike in Goshen, but it's just a really good deal. It's a 6-month lease, but just to get us on our feet. But our commitment is fully to Cornwall.
So now you're back in town. Good.
So we're back in town, and we're still looking for space. And to touch back on what you said, I also am waste management certified. I fill in at the Cornwall transfer station every now and then. So just to work there, I have been waste management certified.
Awesome.
Okay, so is there a motion to appoint Tom to Torrington Area Health?
I will make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Thank you for volunteering.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
All right.
Is that okay, please?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. You don't have to stay to the bitter end.
All right. Thank you so
Okay.
much. It was
All right.
really nice to
Go
meet
have
you.
supper too.
Right. Okay, so moving along, I went to planning and zoning last week. They voted to accept our 824 referral and found it did not conflict with the town plan and conservation development. So basically, the planning and zoning has approved it. We've got a opinion letter from Shirley Grimes on Bill Colby's request of finding that us buying property would not impact his development potential.
I'd want to bring a point up on that. I don't have his letter in front of me, but
Here's a copy of the letter.
I didn't read it, and what his what Purley's opinion says is that it won't adversely impact the right of Colby Gravel Bank to continue operating in accordance with the prior approval and memorandum. Well, that's not based on my review. It appears to me that what Purley is saying is that it won't affect his gravel bank operation,
Right.
his
Right.
gravel mining operation. But it doesn't touch on the question of, does it affect his ability to develop the property?
Okay.
And if I was Bill, I would want to make sure that that is the case.
Is that the
And I think
question now?
I think that may be what Bill was asking us. And I think in fact it's probably
Right.
true, because this is a property line adjustment,
Right,
but Purley doesn't actually state that.
right, okay.
Um,
So I'll ask him to give an opinion on the development.
Development
Impact.
Right, which is really
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, you're right, that is actually what he was
Right,
asking
right.
about.
And
use
we
of his
don't-
business, right?
We don't have to have this in hand before we sign off on the town meeting call. Just we needed to have it before the town meeting.
Yeah.
Right,
But we can
right.
get a revised letter from him and send it to
Yeah,
him.
yeah. I'm not,
Okay.
yeah, I'm not
Right.
questioning it on the town meeting part of it. I'm
Right.
just saying to close, to make the closing all happen.
Right,
Because what we're asking for here is approval, the town call is to ask for approval of funds.
right.
That's assuming that we're actually gonna get the, it's gonna be what we say it's gonna be. If we change our mind,
Right.
it all doesn't happen.
Okay, so I will ask Curly to revise that. Okay, moving on to the May 15th call, we have our 5 items that we've talked about and have been mentioned to the Board of Finance. These will be on their agenda to vote on them, I think tomorrow night. So the 5 items are, Karen, do you have all this? Do you want to?
No, I wanted to write something for this weekend.
Oh, good.
Figured give you a chance to pull it all together.
Pull it all together. So we have the budget. We have the budget, which has a hearing this Friday night at the school, 7:30. We have the land next to the firehouse from Colby Gravel Mine, Gravel Bank. We have the $10,000 from the Gates bequest to 75th. We have the money for the generator at the firehouse. We have $5,000 to the Cornwall Conservation Trust for purchasing 17 acres from Trinity.
That's a lot for a town meeting.
It is, it's busy.
It's a lot of stuff happening.
Right.
That's a lot for a
So-
town meeting, because there's a lot happening.
It is. So I'd make a motion that we would sign off on the call as approved by the town attorney and presented it to us tonight.
I'd second that.
Any discussion?
I think I only have one question about the only spending $10,000 on the 275th from the Gates bequest. We had
Yeah.
talked about taking funds from other
Right,
arenas,
right.
such as the building officials
Yes.
line item.
Yes.
Do you think that's a smart move to take from his line item for this kind of a thing, where maybe it might be prudent to leave it in his line item and use it for something more appropriate for that line item, for that town building official line item?
It could be, I
As
mean,
opposed
we,
to the Gates bequest where we have more, leeway to where, how we can use the funds? If you know what I'm, not asking it in the right way, but.
It's a good question without a
Without
right or
having-
wrong answer.
Right, like
I mean-
specific direction of how each fund gets used.
Right, and we have been somewhat vague on the Gates bequest. I mean, I've said that we have a policy, we have a goal of taking $10,000 a year. Because going back to when we first got it, we originally were just gonna take the earnings. Well, the earnings haven't amounted to much in this interest rate climate. So
Right.
then we switched gears somewhat
Right.
with the Housatonic Youth Service Bureau, because that's an obvious, Gates-friendly use of it. On the other hand, then if we have this goal of $10,000, which is not set in writing or in stone, because say there's something else that really comes up to us next year, the year afterwards, it's 25,000 or 30,000. So that's, I mean, when we talked about buying this land from the Colbys, I mean, that could be used, 'cause Larry helped do a skating rink behind there a long time ago, so that would be a legitimate expense. But it's just my thought of trying to, by restricting it to 10,000 a year as a goal, if not a policy, that spreads it out over a period of time, because unless we get another generous bequest, we won't have, we won't have that after we keep on spending it down. Whereas the building official line has been building up over a period of time, and it's building up every time we get a building permit. So hopefully with more activity, that's gonna replenish. And we have, designated some money. We have even taken the $8,000 out, which is, fair, which is aggressive. We haven't had that many, it's been accumulating quicker than we've had built. I mean, we've used money and we had to do some work on the pink house. We had to get somebody in there to secure the electric system because it was burnt, and funds were not obviously available for that. We're having to spend some money to refurbish Paul's office. We're doing some money for the child center, but I would say that is something that comes in much more often than the Gates thing. We could take money out of, we've had a good budget year, we could take money out of contingencies, take money out of next year's budget, but my thought is, here's a non-tax amount that's some of accrued, why not use it if it has a good chance of redoing? Because the 275th, I think, is spending a lot of money, but it's a 25-year cycle. I mean, I don't think the town spent anything like that 25 years ago. They did some fundraising, but I think it's going to be money well spent, because it's going to be a lot of excitement and a lot of good things happening in the summer. And we have these accounts that seem like, why not do it?
Yeah, I would just hate to take that money out of the building official line that could be used for something that might come up, like, the pink house, or, that kind of an event that we could not take from the Gates bequest, or wouldn't make as much sense to take from the Gates bequest. We might have more pushback from that. It is, like, $8,000 is a lot to take from the building official's line.
Well, we always have available the contingency fund if we need to
Sure,
access money
sure.
for some contingency that we haven't specifically planned on, I think. Are we still leaving something in the building official's account?
Yeah, there was still a few thousand.
Yeah.
Couple $1,000?
Yeah.
I like the idea of restricting ourselves to only $10,000 out of the Gates funds, so so we have a chance of it lasting 25 years or longer.
Right.
Because we certainly could spend it all on, in short order on a few things. It's certainly worthwhile. And maybe we will if we come up with something that has a longer lasting effect than the 275th. Is your question more spending it, more money from the building officials line, or we're not spending enough on the whole event, or?
No, just like where the money is coming from and what makes the most sense.
I think the other thing.
In case something should
Right.
happen in the future, could we say, oh no, we can't fund that because we used the money here?
I
And,
think if there's, I mean, I said we're in pretty good financial shape coming out of this year. And I think the Board of Finance will more look at the revenues, it looks good. The grand list is growing, schools been very good on their spending. We've had good management for some of the things we do. So I think also we are looking for that fund that when we're taking the money out to fund that, it's up to 8,500. So if we get donations, it offsets that amount. So that's the proposal to use that. So we take $10,000 out of the Gates bequest. We still need another $10,000. $1,500 is going to come out of the town endowment, and that's going to go into the T-shirt
right.
business. So some of that may come back.
So
But then if we get donations, we're going to take that. Those will offset that $8,500. Now the committee's pretty set on their budget. There may be a few things like bands that they haven't anticipated, but I'm pretty sure the budget's going to be somewhere around $20,000 because they overestimated some of the things in that budget.
right.
So I mean, I think that's the $8,500. That's one thing. They said at the Board of Finance it's an up to amount. It's not that we have to spend that if we do get some offsetting donations.
Right. So do people that are donating, do they understand that it's a donation to offset expenses and not that it's going to add to
Yes.
the,
At least the first donor I talked to said that was his desire, was to offset, to
To offset
contribute it so the town would not
upfront
have to
costs.
spend the 20,000. He would chip it in to that amount to offset those expenses, similar to what we did at the Christmas tree.
okay. I think as long as people understand
Right.
that it's not gonna be adding to the 20,
Right.
it's gonna be offsetting the 20,
Right.
that's important for our people to know.
And I think we put that in our minutes last time.
Yeah.
But, good questions, but we'll find out. Any other questions on the motion to sign off on the town meeting call? All in favor? Aye. Planning and zoning cell tower question, I did go to their meeting last week where they talked about the meeting previous month, where they formulated a question to our board, which I was hoping we would have a copy of the minutes or something from them, but it's
There was nothing taped to the door, was there?
nothing taped to the door. So anyway, we may have to wait till next month, but basically, they are asking us a question whether the Board of Selectmen wants to appoint a citizens committee to investigate telecommunications in town. It's not a demand, as they said. They're not really asking us to do it, they're asking us the question, which is a little unusual request, but they said, would we consider doing it? They're not asking us to do it, they said, would we consider doing it? So, I don't know if you, I mean, it's something to think about. We obviously have taken time to get the question, you know, to decide tonight if you want to see actually what was written. But I thought I'd bring it up so we can have it as an agenda item and deal with it within the next month, say. Something to think about.
And they want this committee to look at
Cell
citing.
citing, cell coverage, desired amounts, different technologies, this kind of stuff. Do you want to discuss it now, or do you want to wait till you get something right?
about a lot of these things, but it'd be nice if the town implemented some new, they had some new ideas to happen for the cell tower regulations. They had come up with some new things to incorporate. I'd be a proponent of P&Z implementing what they already have. I thought they had spent a lot of time and effort on coming up with some new and revised regulations that incorporated a lot of different things. Not quite sure what's going to be obtained by having I'm not quite sure what's going to be obtained by studying it further. The Siting Council is the ultimate judge and jury on this to begin with. They do take into consideration what the town desires are, as long as they're
Germane.
yeah, as long as they're competent desires and regulations. So I'm not really sure what having a citizens group study this is gonna.
Well, we asked the COG for a map.
Correct,
Did that ever
that's in
happen?
the works.
It's still.
Yeah, but the Siting Council did grant that request of doing a propagation study of where the coverage is in the town. So that's going on. The second thing that is going on is there's a difference between the town plan and the town regulations. According to Pearlie, that these P&Z cannot regulate cell towers. It can have language in its plan that can be referred to when something gets proposed for the town. So what P&Z is doing is they are doing some revision of their town plan to talk about location. Locations are important, and that's what they're really talking about, is putting them where they do the most good with the least amount of visual impact. And I think if you shrink the town opinion down to that
Well, it's not
philosophy,
location, it was type of tower too, because it was the full size.
well, yeah, I mean, I think they're
from
driving,
monopole or just the jumpers on the
I think that whole,
telephone poles.
whatever that is, that they're almost like a repeater widespread thing, just isn't happening in this type of rural area. It's happening more in the suburban, urban thing, so I don't think that's, I mean, the other part of the equation is what is being proposed. I mean, we can have all the regulation and plans we want, but if there's not a company, I mean, the town's not gonna build them. If there's not a company that's in the business of bringing technology to town, then it doesn't matter that much. I
See,
mean,
the two towers that have come, that this board has had conversations on, one got partway and just stopped, never got to the Siting Council, and the one that got approved at the Siting Council hasn't been built. So it's not, there's nobody really knocking us down trying to build these things either. And then you have a whole other group of people saying, I want coverage, I want coverage.
right, and you've got,
And other people saying they don't want the coverage, we shouldn't be doing it. So there's sort of a whole range of things. I think, as you said, that having regulations that the Siting Council can refer to that attempts to get the town's desires, not on a ridge, not on top of the ridge, sort of hidden by the ridge, not visible from the covered bridge.
right, and they did propose one by the covered bridge and one in the middle of Cornwall Bridge. And both times they said, not a great idea, and they backed off. So, I mean, I think even though we may not have formal power, they do not want to engage us in the big, long, drawn-out legal stuff, because they can go to 8 other places and build them without opposition. So I think the town does have a lot of clout when it comes to these things. But I think there also, as Richard said, there are people that do want to have improved service. I mean, it's all
I guess, well, to make a decision, I think we should see what planning and zoning is
Right.
officially proposing. Their minutes are not posted on the unofficial website yet, so.
So why don't we'll
put this off to next
For
week.
next
and-
meeting
and
to
we'll
see
get
exactly what they're asking.
we'll see what the request is before we
Yeah,
act on
that'd be
it.
good.
Okay? All right. Next, I got a series of emails last week from Nancy Berry, who, and Heidi Kunik, who are on the Cream Hill Lake Study Group. And they had hired a limnologist, lake scientist, George Knocklin, who's affiliated with, I think, UConn, and he's done some preliminary surveys of the lake, and he met with the group in winter, and what they're looking at is doing some sort of volunteer effort to really do a baseline study of various features and chemical composition of Cream Hill Lake. So he can set up these volunteers who takes water samples and stuff, and then they would have an analysis of the lake. So, as Nancy said, there may be other people, Lake Association, private people willing to donate to this. The town obviously has an interest, as that's where the town beach is, and if this gets at the issue of invasive plant species, it gets into the issue of water composition. So, I mean, I think it's something that would be good to participate in. Again, we don't need to make a decision tonight, but I would like the town to exhibit some leadership. We did appoint this citizen study group with a specific thing to do, and now if we can move forward for this summer.
So are they they've, in some of the emails that went back and forth that you sent us, some of the stuff they're gonna study, if
Right.
oxygen levels or different
Yeah.
kinds of oxygen, other kinds of,
Map plants.
right, and do quite a bit of baseline work.
Right.
There was a budget of some sort,
Yeah, there's $2,500.
$2,500.
Right.
and some money,
Right.
so it's sort of the
By our
same.
next meeting, I'll try to poll the likely suspects and see what they would be willing to contribute to the study, and then the town would contribute some.
Yeah, I think the town should.
Right.
This is
And we
certainly
could,
something
as
the
that we
town-
haven't tapped into our contingency fund, so we could take our money out of that, either put it in the Conservation Commission, put it in the Hammond Beach Fund, but basically it's gonna go to this effort to find what the water quality is, find out from Barbara what the right mechanism
Well,
is.
certainly what they said in there, some of the likely suspects are Yelping Hill, Cream Hill Lake
Right.
Association, the town,
Yeah.
anybody who's on the lake.
Richard,
No problem.
small, nominal.
I'll do whatever. No
It's all
problem.
good. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, this is all part of what,
Right.
and that's great, but
So my thought is the town might say do half, and then if we could ask people for the other
Sure,
half, and it gets something done, and it gets, this guy, I think is very good, and that's, when you read about other towns spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix problems that are very hard to fix, it's much better to spend a little bit of money to find out
Yeah,
where we're at and
to
maybe
try to mitigate it before
mitigate it
happens.
before it blooms.
So what's
Right.
is the 2,500 the budget to do the survey? Or
Yeah. And that would be
Or
a
was
series,
it Task 1 and Task 2.
there's a bunch of studying over the summer. Because what he would like to do, there's nutrient cycles that follow the calendar. So you expect, you'd actually do a series, I mean, it'd be good to get something going now, because you would expect some of these levels to be different in the spring than they're gonna be in the summer and in the fall with the heat.
So the
changes.
$2,500 is for him, and you need he needs a volunteer crew? Is that
Yeah,
the
I
deal?
think
think that's what-
he
yeah.
sets up a volunteer effort. They're gonna do a lot of the sampling. Richard will be out there with his boat, taking the vials, or whatever. I mean, I think also it's a great opportunity for, you know, kids, high school people, whoever wants to go out there and learn something about their lake.
There was
to go out
something
there.
that had to purchase, a gizmo,
Yeah.
that, a meter of some sort that did something for reading.
So, again, why don't we, we will, try to take action on that next time, but I just wanted to bring that up, so it's out there. Any other thoughts on the Cream Lake study proposal? I'm glad that Nancy's following up on this and really showed some good time and effort on it. So. Anything, other thoughts on that? Okay, highway projects, in between fires and other things, we are in thunderstorms and raining, we are sweeping roads this week. And Jim is, as of noon, we're going to start putting down stone and oil on Thursday, try to get wrapped up on Friday.
And
It's
that
gonna
was
be-
on what roads?
This is Pierce Lane, Dibble Hill, Cream Hill, Cherry Hill, Cogswell, I think,
How much of Green Hill?
all of,
From the school to the Falls Village line?
right.
Really?
The advantage is our roads get narrower as they go up the hill. It starts out at 22 feet, and by the time you get up by the farm, it's down to about 14. So we can, that helps. And then you go up Cogswell, and that's like 26 wide, and like you go nowhere with a lot. But anyway, so that's a thought. We've got 2 sweepers at work, and the crew's doing that. So hopefully we'll do that, which
Are you sweeping the whole town, all roads, all town roads?
we will sweep all town roads. We've got the cog sweeper this week and next, I think. So we will get, and then we probably won't get everything swept by the end of the 2-week period. And then we're gonna hire a service to come in when we have to get the cog sweeper back. We just got another sweepers for next year, so we should be good
Okay.
with that. So we will sweep all the roads, except for the dirt roads, of course. Well,
And our guys run the sweeper, or?
we are running one sweeper, the sweeper for the Seymour ceiling is being run by their
Sure,
contractor.
they run their own, but when we
Yeah,
get the one from the
Mhm.
cog, our guys
Yep.
run it.
yep, and they've been trained by the company that owns it and services it.
And the Seymour sweeper,
Yes,
are we supplying the trucks to take the
Yes.
sand?
I think so.
And that's going to Catholic Cemetery.
We have to, see, there's a line of maple trees. If we went in there right now, we would break a bunch of limbs off. So what we have to do is trim we have to trim some limbs to do
Oh,
it
so
right.
this part of the sweepings may not go there, but the next,
Right, but
portion
we'll have plenty of sand. That won't be a problem. 'Cause we've done Wickham Hill, but there's still
So basically, right now, the crunch is to get everything swept so we can put
the
the,
oil down before the 1st of May.
right,
And
that's
in
the,
theory, we're gonna have to see what happens. We got Plan B for the art of the dump, because that's supposed to happen too. If everything works right, we'll get out of there right before the post set up.
Friday afternoon.
Plan B would be, we've got the steel shed set up to take the artwork if something goes awry.
I'm ready.
Okay, he's ready, he's got his stuff, good. All right, so anyway, so that's what we're doing. I heard from Roger, he is working on some geotechnical bridge survey proposals for us, so we should have that next week. He has a couple of firms he thinks will be interested in receiving bids. Legislative update, the Council of Small Towns, the COG is in Hartford on May 6th. meeting with legislators, and the Council of Small Towns is in there the following week, so a lot of things are still in play as far as issues that impact our communities. So,
Are you going to those meetings?
yeah, I'll be there.
Because the agenda looked great. Like,
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll see. I mean, I said I have talked to Clark and Roberta, and they are from different parties, but they're both pushing in the same direction for the small town, so it's good.
Yeah.
We'll see. Things are in play. So next is Bradford Road. I did talk to people in West Cornwall about the post office about changing Bradford Road to West Cornwall address. They said that's fine, but because it's part of the part of the Falls Village zone, the approval, it has to be approved also by Falls Village. They have to give it up, and part of the compensation for postal carriers come out of the amount of mileage and the amount of boxes. So John Van Doren and I went up to Falls Village Post Office, had a nice meeting with the postmaster there, and she felt, she understood his concerns about misdirected mail, impact on a business. He hopes to reestablish a business, home-based business this spring, this fall up there, so it's critical that he gets his mail, like even getting his driver's license. You can't say you live in Bradford Road in Falls Village because it just doesn't exist. So anyway, so she said they do review the routes, and he's assuming that when the route review is September or October, they will be sympathetic to the change. He said the higher ups have heard about this through the postmasters. They understand it. So if that doesn't come to pass, then we can go up the chain as far as we need to go. If we need to get our federal representatives involved, we can do that. John was appreciative of our support, and it's a real,
I was
concern.
surprised when they sent the letter that they were still a Falls Village address, because everyone else around them has
Well, it comes,
seceded from that. We've got the West Cornwalls and the Goshens.
well, Hot Boy Hill, they come down 43, and then they go up Hot Boy Hill and down 63. So then they make a spur.
Right.
They hit
But
the bottom.
like North Goshen Road, all those are all Goshen
Right,
now.
yeah,
They
go-
got away from that.
Right. So they did recently.
But
So
Hot Boy Hill is all,
Hot Boy Hill still falls
I
in.
was surprised that they were
Right.
still there. Yeah.
so does Hot Boy Hill want to change too?
We haven't heard from Hot Boy Hill.
Oh, it makes
We've been-
sense. Like, just
Right.
make it the town that you live in.
Right. It does. But then West Cornwall delivers a lot of mail for Sharon.
To Sharon.
Sharon.
I know.
Right.
And it's Sharon. Just be Sharon.
But it is, he said it's very tough because it's not even about the mail, it's about your address. So,
Yeah.
anyway, we're seeing some movement there.
Yeah.
So any other
Burn
public,
GPS, yeah.
any other public comments? Okay, so we just have, bill payment, bank reconciliation. Oh, we actually need to sign this
Yeah, so
town meeting
it's
call. We need to do it in black, Joyce, or if we can get away with blue.
The difference
You
is the
want
people in
black over
Sharon
is fine, yeah.
wish they
Good
were
print
involved.
books.
Right.
I know, because they're where they are located.
And so they don't mind having the West Cornwall Bridge address.
Yeah.
Okay.